So thanks all for joining our webinar today on how MES and ERP work together to optimize production. We have with us today Lee Jellum, our business consultant, as well as Lulu Wright, our business consultant at GE Vernova, as our speakers on this topic. Before we get started, I wanted to run through some housekeeping. So make sure that all of you are muted to allow our speakers to present without any distractions. If you have any questions, please enter them on the chat. If you need any technical assistance, you can reach out to me at my email provided here. And then lastly, this session will be recorded and sent to you after this webinar on a thank you email. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that this is a monthly webinar series that we run, and we have been running this from the beginning of the year, and we have more episodes coming up until December this year. All of these topics are trending and resonate well within our audience in the manufacturing space. So please scan this QR code if you were interested to watch the on-demand recordings of our previous sessions, and if you wanted to register for upcoming sessions as well. And with that, I'll pass it to our speaker, Lee.
Thank you, Aroni. Welcome, everyone. Look forward to sharing the session here with Ask an Expert. Got to figure out who the expert is here, but yeah, feel free to ask questions as we go along. We'll try to make this interactive and still try to get through the content. Before the agenda, really going to cover 4 main topics, and then we'll follow up with additional questions at the end. So starting out, we're going to talk about what, for this topic, for MES and ERP and how they optimize productivity. We want to start with looking at the challenges that you're facing. We'll talk about the value that's gained by integrating MES and ERP and the symbiotic relationship that we've observed with existing success stories. And then third, we'll go over the integration essentials within a demonstration, so you can see how the ERP and MES interact and what the transactions look like. And then finally, I'll follow that up just to kind of close the loop with a summary of the 5 pillars to achieve that optimized productivity. So how the integration can solve different challenges and all the individual little improvement areas, really to help you build a smart factory solution. So there's a whole lot of content in that slide on how to get there. So with that, our session today is really twofold. One is the business data, has to be populated by what's going on in real live, production execution. So how we use that to become more agile on the plant floor, to be more efficient and less waste and better quality. So with that, how do we look at that in terms of what you're facing every day? And there's really 5 challenges that I'm highlighting here. I know you have a lot more challenges than that within manufacturing, or your partners or customers have those challenges. So really starts out with the number 1 that's been around for quite a while. People are always trying to solve it and make it more, looking at continuous project improvements, but that's really the disruptions that happen, and we'll cover those in detail. The things that happen within the 4 walls of the plant, and there's obviously a broader supply chain disruptions, and MES may not solve that, but ERP does. So having the 2 interact can provide more visibility. A second challenge is talent and labor shortages. So how do you go about using this information that's in these systems, or to automate the exchange of information to make everyone's life easier on the plant floor, so they can focus on things that need to be focused on when things don't go right. And then another challenge is, agility for new product introduction. That's NPI. So you have changing customer demands. So you're constantly adapting the plant floor to new products or different packaging or other changes, and so that's a big challenge, as well as the cost pressures that are coming from leadership to be more productive with the limited assets.
I can put my headphones on.
And the fourth challenge is okay, unmuted myself. Lulu, please let me know if you can't hear me, or Aroni.
We can hear you now.
Okay,
Yeah, we
perfect.
can.
Yep. All right. So limited insights to the I say siloed data because it's in different systems. So by communicating between different systems, so in addition to ERP, there are other systems, obviously business systems and data lakes and whatever, sharing that information. So you could use this integration conversation to extend that to other systems as well. But even separately, ERP and MES, just having those two silos synchronized with data provides more insights. And then finally, accessing that data and accessing from giving people access to it that need specific information. So I'm freeing up that data. So solutions that lead to more value from your manufacturing processes really compounds. And I have 5 pillars here that I'm going to talk about and summarize this with more details on the very last slide. So this is kind of a preview of how do you go about unlocking hidden capacity? How do you optimize material usage and inventory levels, tighter quality control, enable your plant personnel, and digitize processes? And a lot of those are going to come from integration between MES and ERP. So they're going to drive out that value. So here's value drivers and improvement levers that will help you determine what kind of value do we get from laying out our integration and being able to solve some of these challenges, such as volume and capacity through manufacturing throughput, or looking at price and quality. Reducing cost of goods sold through yield and material usage, energy usage and costs, inventory costs. And if we look at asset efficiency, obviously you have downtime, availability, and waste, performance leading up to efficiency measurements, whether it's OEE or true efficiency or TEEP or similar KPIs. And then, of course, your company strengths like brand protection and regulation. So all of these are going to benefit from having the linkage between MES and ERP. So the value is significant. Now, just so we understand, so ERP is the enterprise resource planning. This is the system that's really looking at what should what should happen within the plant or throughout the enterprise. And MES is going to look more at, with the 4 walls of the plant, what's actually happening, how do we respond to disruptions. So there's an execution component and a continuous improvement component within the 4 walls that help you with the schedule, what orders you're running, what production is, efficiency, quality. Whereas ERP is looking at the sales orders that are coming into the system. How do we plan for materials that we need to produce finished goods for? So what materials are required, what labor is required, procurement modules. And also does a rough schedule, does warehouse. Typically, sometimes there's WMS systems that are separate from the ERP, logistics and financials. So sharing that information between these 2 systems complements both. So that's your plan to produce. So if we look at it, what we'll show during our demo is creating an order. So let's say you have to manufacture 100 gallons of R26 green paint on July 29th at 8 a.m. that's just, one order that needs to happen at plant one. So that gets downloaded. So that's telling you what should happen. Now, the reality is most ERP systems then are not really sure about what the status is until the very end, or don't have user interfaces or automation that automatically feeds back updates. And that's where MES comes in. You do it during the order process or at the end. But really, it's telling you what should happen. And the reality is, the shop floor has various disruptions. So if we focus just on the manufacturing operation, so ahead of that is materials, suppliers bringing materials, distribution centers in and out, and then store consumer. So let's focus within the four walls. Within there, you have processing, finishing, packaging as an example. Like your process, it won't be the same as this, but whatever your process is, your value chain for what you're making, you're going to have some sort of materials coming in, some sort of processes going on, and then packaging or assembly to be shipped. So if we look at those, that's really where MES has a whole lot of importance, because what happens is you have these orders that need to be scheduled, and ideally you're looking at finite capacity scheduling to make sure that you're getting the most capacity, the least amount of lost time from changeovers between different products, and the rules that you set up for which ones require longer changeovers and larger changeovers for equipment. So optimizing all that with the resources you have on hand and how many hours you have in a day or days in a week to perform that. And then once the order comes down, then you needed to know what materials need to be available and what finished goods you're making. And there's a whole bunch of things that happen on the plant floor, different events that occur, whether they're manual or automated. These events, such as starting the order on that line or in that process area, material prep, machine settings, all the purple ones are kind of like things that need to be set up or actions that need to be taken to complete an order, whether it's through the different stages. And then the blue ones are really showing, these are typically your ERP integration points. Raw material was consumed. How much was it? What was the lot number? How does it link to the batch that you're making, or to the subassembly that you're making? Then you have WIP consumption if you have intermediate products, and then all the way to finished goods. And during that whole time, if everything goes great, that might be all you really need to collect. But the reality is, you've got changeover events, you've got machines that go down, you've got a filler might go down or whatever, and so you need to reschedule that or move that production over, or you just have a delay and you have performance issues. And then you also usually have quality tests that are going on to ensure that you're not just packaging bad product or whatever your process is. So obviously you've got to do these inspections along the way. You want to record waste, and you also have rework. So you record the issues that occurred, product disposition. So all of these are happening. So that's the reality of the shop floor. All this needs to happen. So now you want to select which of this information should feed up into my higher level systems for financials, for costing, for genealogy, track and trace. So MES can handle a lot of that, but ERP is really the master for a lot of that, especially the costing data. So having that linkage is going to be highly beneficial and provides more insights on, am I going to hit my due dates? When do I need to reorder materials? All of those types of challenges can be solved with the connection between the two systems. So there are a lot of use cases, and with that, I want to turn it over to Lulu to share some of those use cases and what the integration typically looks like.
All right. Thank you, Lee. I hope everybody can hear me. I guess I would say before moving on, are there any questions, anything? Otherwise, happy to get started.
Uh, I have one question.
Go ahead.
Hello, audible? Yeah. So I have one question for Lee. I don't know how much is it relevant, but then Lee spoke about the rework orders that we can have, or the rework. So is there out of the box functionality where we can have the integration between ERP and MES system in GE plant apps to handle the reworks with maybe rework orders? Or is it totally customized development that needs to be done?
Yeah, in my past experience, it was custom, but we did release a bunch of new features related to discrete manufacturing. So that's
Mhm.
often where we have nonconformance. So we've had nonconformance in there, and we just enhanced it even more. So how do you handle the rework and the disposition of that? So and it also places the status of that order or that assembly so that it doesn't get shipped. But
Yeah.
it's a great question on the integration. I don't know if the REST API is available in the most recent release or not. That's something we can get back to you on.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe it was for discrete, but maybe nothing for process industry,
So for
or
process industry, yeah, it's usually a little more. So we can put the order, obviously in a disposition status that it doesn't go on, but the rework process is usually a little more customized. And then how do you want to handle that in ERP? You could match the
yeah.
disposition status. And there
Yeah.
is a order process order updates. And I say that because we have templates that Lulu will share, and that's one that I typically see a little bit of additional configuration to meet the exact needs, but there's a set of templates, and we'll go through those.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Lee.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for that. Yes. So we've been talking about this more at a higher level. Now, if we think about this from the use case perspective or possibilities, there's a few that we can think of or focus on regarding how ERP and MES work to help optimize production. Traceability is one of them, right? Being able to report back to ERP what was consumed, so the actual versus the planned, and what materials actually went into final product. Sometimes there may be substitutions, for example. Another big thing usually is quality. We can, or oftentimes we see systems, MESs, interfacing with something like a QMS for quality master data and specifications, but being able to report back, right? Some of those KPIs. Yields, being able to report back. And you're going to hear a lot, right? Is that bi-directional, that we can get some information from ERP, such as work orders, products, bill of materials, but then from those actuals, being able to report back what actually happened during the process execution in the plant floor is where you can gain a lot of value. So regarding the yield, being able to report back, yield mapping, being able to identify scrap and the true cost of production. Obviously, KPIs such as OEE and those related to asset management. Usually we hear about the mean time between failures, mean time to repair, and others. Regarding energy and utilities is becoming more and more of a focus all over the globe, being able to report back to EHS about consumption, and being able to keep better track of some of these metrics for sustainability purposes, such as emissions calculations. Regarding the digital workforce, having your operator have access through integration or through having this within the MES of reference documents. Could be related to PPE required. It could be related to steps to perform the process itself. You could have it be, related or regarding or across a process order. It could be for one step within an order or for multiple. So it depends on how this is configured and what your needs are so that you can gain the most out of it.
Look,
Yeah.
again, are you sharing a screen, or is it like just your
Yes.
briefing?
Are you not able to share? See, I can reshare.
I don't know. It is for just for me. Not able to see the screen.
Leah, Ronnie, are you able to
Just
see?
yeah,
Yep,
good
we
sense.
can see
Yep,
your
we see.
screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So might be some issue with me. Yeah.
I will say in the past, I don't know if this helps. I had to leave a meeting and come back and was able to do it when things got a little bit strange like that.
Sure. I'll check that. Thank you.
But thank you for letting us know. Um, so, in addition to these use cases, right, what are the essentials for this ERP and MES integrations? Master data. You have to be able to have that correspondence so that when an ERP mentions something like product and your MES calls that material, you know that they're speaking about the same thing. Capacity planning, scheduling, another portion of the puzzle that can help with this optimization. Being able to make sure that you're going to be able to meet your production because inventory changes or fluctuates or things are not delivered to you when you thought they were going to. Being able to test scenarios. Digital orders. We've talked about ERP being able to, for example, automatically send those over to MES, but MES being able to use real-time data and then go back to ERP with what actually happened versus what was planned. For material tracking, we talked about, we can call it tracing, we can call it genealogy, but knowing throughout the process, and it could be all the way from your receiving inspection to your finished goods, where certain materials or lots of wear at any given instance. And of course, being able to keep track of your actuals of how much you produced and being able to send those back into ERP. Now, how does our Proficy Smart Factory interact with other systems, including ERP? So we have a few standard formats and technologies that we use. For ERP specifically, you have B2 MML messages, and Lee mentioned some transactions, and this is what we mean by that. There are templates for different, what we call messages. So it could be for a work order, for a process order, usually thinking of discrete versus process or continuous. Then you have material and material lots. So all of these different pieces of information that you may want to exchange between these two systems. We have obviously database tables, JSON messages, XML formats that are also supported. And again, depending on the capabilities of the other systems that we are exchanging data with, that also will have an impact, right? For example, like Lee mentioned, we continue to develop and expand on our REST API portfolio. So as we get more of those, then does your ERP have the same ability so that we can just use this technology? That would be one thing to keep in mind. But the idea is that we're enabled to have the read and write or that bidirectional data transfer. But not just to ERP. It could be, like we mentioned before, quality systems. Oftentimes you hear about maintenance systems. And another good tool that we have that can be used to interface with other software is Node-RED, which is a flow editor. So if you think about it, is more of a plug and play that you would plug. You could do a database component, right? And you configure that, and then you just make things easier for you to help create and define these interfaces. And there's also legacy access to the MES database. But the idea here is, yes, we can have bidirectional communication between ERP and MES, but also to other systems that you may be needing information from. Now, what we have created is, in order to be able to demo, a simple integration with base data. How does this work? The one that you will see has an SAP S4HANA cloud component. So that would be where the order would be created. Once you create the order, you configure it to be what you need it to be, then you are able to release it. Upon releasing it, using middleware, this order will go into scheduler in this case. And there's different things that happen right in here. And like I mentioned before, there's different ways that you could use to configure this portion. But what we see is the order come into our scheduler software. From there, we are going to release it into our MES. And why is that? Because once the order is released, ideally you want to make sure, right, that your plan is going to work with your actuals. If there's anything that you want to do, like I mentioned before, such as testing different scenarios or making sure that you're going to have enough inventory to produce, you would be able to do all this before releasing the updated order into plan applications. And you can see to the right those different messages or pieces of data that you could exchange between the two systems. The main ones being the ones that we've been discussing, such as orders, bill of materials, products, route, if we're talking discrete, etc. Now, on the way back, you're going to be able to see the actual or the quantity produced. And just very quickly, this is what we're going to see. You have things such as an ID, a product code and description, and a quantity, and you're going to be able to see those from SAP go into your MES. And on the way back, you're going to see your quantity delivered as well from MES into SAP. Let me go back into that. And just very quickly, we mentioned this is S/4HANA Cloud. So what we're going to be doing next is creating the order, which you can do by adding information on the top, or you can templatize your order and you can just have one that you can copy from. And in that case, you could have things such as the product and the quantity and all of those things already filled out for you on the next screen. Once we do that, we want to add the quantity. You can see in here you have the material, the code, the description. We have other things. And once we select our basic dates, usually start and end, we release the order and then we save it and we see that our order ends in 224. That is the one that we just created. Now from here, what we're going to do is go into plan applications, so the MES software, and go from this first portion of being able to create the order, which is what your ERP would do, into the second one. I'm sorry, it's going to go into schedule and then into here. What we see in MES is the following. Your 224 order is in here. Straight from SAP, you can see your green paint, you can see your 1,000 quantity that was added. And you can see the same data in here. What you see here is the planned. If once you start production, which is what's going to happen afterwards, basically, this 224 order, this status is going to be updated from pending to next, and then to active. Once the status is active, then you can start counting production against it. And that's when your actual would be updated to correspond to that. Your remaining quantity would also be updated, and you would have an actual start time also added. In this case, since it's a demo, we're going to go ahead and complete it. And we're going to see how now this order is no longer on our main list of orders, but it is on our next tab of closed instead. And the last thing is once, in our case, we simulate this data, we go from the scheduler MES portion into SAP. And we go back and we show how we have our quantity produced which in our case is we expected to produce 1,000, we delivered 1,000. And just to close, the main ideas that Lee presented earlier during this call, these are the 5 main, I would say, focus points for optimizing productivity with MES and ERP working together. Being able to unlock your hidden capacity and continuous improvement. So being able to have your optimal production plan, being able to have cross-functional collaboration, where you're always looking into optimizing your asset utilization, being able to keep track and minimize your downtime. We talked about traceability, and then analytics, right? Ideally, once you are able to have more and more data in a certain format, then you can go back and be able to do more predictive things on that data. Being able to optimize material usage and inventory levels, like we mentioned, being able to keep track of this in an automatic manner, both of consumption, of the actuals used as far as quantities and actual products. We did talk about keeping accurate inventory. Regarding tighter quality control, we talked about interfacing with other quality systems. You could also keep track of this in the MES, but being able to have specs, being able to, you can alarm on them, you can notify certain groups of things that are not within specs so they can make sure to take action, as well as have the ability to deal with non-conformance management. Regarding enabled plant personnel, we talked about being able to interact with or have straight from the MES access to documentation. It could be something also like resource certification. We hear about things such as you may need to only allow operators A and B to be able to do certain steps in a process because of certifications needed. So maybe interacting or interfacing with the system to have that information available and be able to act upon it. And then digitizing processes, right? Being able to have that seamless flow between your ERP with work orders. Again, going back to that concept of what we planned versus what actually happened, and being able to have feedback between both systems, being able to automate your process and operations, your workflows, and having visualization into your plant floor, as well as what happens with your planning. And last but not least, there's a quick survey. If you're able to take it, please go ahead. That helps our team make sure that you're getting content that you find valuable and that we can do better each time.